Friends, this is Recovery Dharma, and my name is Julia. I'm one of the facilitators in this beautiful community. It's such a privilege to be here today to facilitate this practice. On Wednesdays, we study the work of Zen masters, and we've been doing this now for years. We have explored the brilliance of Suzuki Roshi, Roshi Joan Halifax, Thich Nhat Hanh, and then we've extended this practice outside of the typical Zen tradition. And we've gone into more of an ancient text. And we've been studying the work of Shantideva, who was an 8th century monk in India. And his work at that time really sparked the Mahayana tradition of Buddhism that found its way into Tibet and the cultural aspects of Tibet. Shantideva was kind of your classic story of a wealthy young man who threw it all off to become a monk and to devote his life to the Buddhist practices and principles. What makes him quite unique is he took the Buddha's teaching, really, in my mind anyway, a singular teaching of the Buddha, which is don't take my word for it. Take in this Dharma, take in this wisdom, and see how it comes alive in you. You need to breathe it in your own way, in the conditions of your own life, in your body, in this time. So that's what Shantideva did. And he wrote a roadmap for himself, really. How can I take all of this vast practice and create a life for myself that really reflects my devotion to reduce misery in the world? That's what Shantideva endeavored to do. That's what he did. And he shared about it. We know it as the guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life. It has been translated um, not many times, to be perfectly honest, a couple of times, really. But the thing that's so extraordinary is these writings and these teachings are still in existence. And while they have kind of an older, old fashioned religious tone to them, if you will, so much of the wisdom within is relevant to today. I'd like to begin our practice and our reflection by setting an intention for our gathering here today. And before I share with you my sentiment of metta, I invite you to close your eyes as I'm doing. And I invite you to just simply take notice of the posture of your body. My body in this moment is a wee bit slumped. My shoulders are forward. I'm just noticing this. My shoulders are forward. My spine isn't particularly straight. I'm a little slumped over. And so I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to breathe some energy into my body so that I straighten my spine, I lift my shoulders, and I roll them back. And in doing so, I lift my heart, I strengthen my back, I keep the front of my body nice and soft. And there's something that happens in my mood when I do this. I feel better. I feel stronger. I feel more open. And this feels better in my body. The slumped feeling was sort of diminishing my capacity to breathe. And I was feeling kind of frumpy and kind of, and just this simple act of shifting my posture reminds myself that I am sheltered under a divine gaze who reminds me, or this divine gaze reminds me, that I am so well loved. And this divine gaze isn't just looking upon me, it's upon all of us. So collectively, we are so well loved. The sentiment of metta I'd like to share with you today is, may you be tender to all lives. May you be tender to all lives. And friends, this means each of us. And this is hard for some of us, to find avenues, to find access points, entryways of tenderness into our own hearts and minds. That's the invitation today. Knock upon the door of yourself, let yourself in, and be tender in your presence. And let's actually practice that today. The chapter that we're going to explore in Shantadeva's work is relying on patience. And if you have a mind, anything like mine, it's taken a long time for me to unlearn and decondition myself from the pettiness and the harshness and the sharp, biting, nippy attitude that I harbor toward myself. It's strange to be kind and tender to myself. There were many years where it felt fake, challenging, weird, uncomfortable. I didn't quite know how to balance it. There's a moment of harshness that I would try to meet with this sort of syrupy kindness, and the whole thing just felt gross. And so, one of the access points to tenderness for myself was to simply acknowledge, gosh, Julia, that was harsh. That's it. Just the simple awareness shifted something. Just like changing my posture ever so slightly shifts something. So maybe that's the access point. Maybe you can label a doorway in your mind, in your imagination, and write on the doorway harshness or belittling or biting or whatever it is, and enter into that space. That act alone is not only courageous, it's a kindness. Because when you open the door to your own harshness, you by extension bring in fresh air. You open space for yourself. And anytime there's freshness and space, something new is bound to arise. And you don't have to do anything other than open the door. You don't even have to step over into the threshold. You can open the door and stand there and acknowledge, wow, that space in there, that space within my own mind and heart is harsh and bleak. I'm going to look at that for a minute. What a tender, kind thing to do. And this is an important thing to discern because you may not be ready to go over the threshold and go too far deep into that space. And I would invite that to be perfect, just as it is, recognizing I'm not ready. And opening the door was enough. Wow, beautiful. And what an extraordinary way to bring patience into your life. Amazing. So let's take a moment of silence, just a moment, and breathe that in and let that be a grounding force as we listen to this ancient wisdom by Shantideva. Let's just breathe together, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. For the past couple of weeks of our exploration of Shantideva's wisdom is we've been looking at anger and trying to learn to be patient with our own anger and with the anger of others and how pointless it can be. And yet, how it can arise with such a fury that it feels so real. And then the thoughts and the stories that we attach to the sensation we have in the body, to the feelings that we are experiencing, we just concretize this whole experience of anger. And what Shantideva has been encouraging is that by using patience, we can create a little space between ourselves, our good minds, our Buddha nature, which is so open and vast, and the experience itself as a way of discerning, as a way of looking deeply, as a way of asking ourselves, what is this all about? What can I learn here? Today, Shantideva is inviting us to consider our lives and how our lives are precious and impermanent. So there's a question here, a modern question. What do you want to do with your precious human life? These are the words of Shantideva. It would be better for me to die today than to live a long life filled with non-virtue. And even if I have a long life, I shall still have to face the suffering of death. If one person were to awake from a dream in which he had experienced 100 years of happiness, and another were to awake from a dream in which he had experienced but a brief moment of happiness, once awake, the situation would be the same for both, because neither could ever return to that happiness. In the same way, whether our life is long or short, at the time of death, everything ends just the same. Even if I live happily for a long time and acquire great wealth and possessions, I shall still have to leave this life empty handed and naked, as if been robbed by a thief. Imagine somebody asking this question to Shantideva. Well, even so, Acquiring wealth will support your life so that you can purify non virtue and accumulate merit. Shantideva responds, but if in acquiring that wealth I generate non virtues such as anger, it will be my non virtue that increases and my merit that declines. So, how can we apply this wisdom and this perspective to the idea and the realities of recovery? It's a good question. One of the manifestations of substance use disorder that I witness regularly is the mind, the thoughts and stories that when they speak, they say things like, well, I've made so many mistakes. I've struggled so hard to get sober. I've failed so many times. I might as well just give in. What's the point? I've blown up my life. I've ruined everything. The trail of regret is miles long. I'm a great big pile of steaming shit. Wow. Would you look at that? And friends, all of that could be absolutely true and still not be the whole truth. And that's the thing that we're trying to learn here and frankly tenderize is that fixed, hardened thought in the mind that so much misconduct, so much confusion and unskillfulness has created in us a life that is unforgivable, unrelenting in its failure, flawed beyond repair. And this, my friends, is a distortion because the truth lives beyond all of it. And that truth includes those aspects of each of us that are soft and kind and giving and thoughtful and loving and connected to an ancestral line that has existed since beginningless time. We are all, each of us, children of the divine in its mystery, in its light and its shadow, all of us. There's a wonderful story. I won't tell it today, but it's a famous Buddhist story and you can look it up. You can read about it. It's referred to as the Buddha and the terrorist. And it's a story of the Buddha encountering a man by the name of Angulimala, who was wicked, just terrible, traumatized man, traumatized child who grew up to be a murderer, terrible, vicious, awful. And he encountered the Buddha and he woke up. And in that moment of having had a life of exceptional misconduct, exceptional confusion, terror everywhere he went, in that moment of awakening, he vowed to do things differently, to make up for all of this misconduct by living a whole new life. He couldn't go back and change the past, but he could definitely use the present to inform his future. And that's what he did. He joined the Buddha. He became a monk. He was given a name, a new name. His name was called Ahimsa, which is to do no harm. And so that story is a reminder that even if you harbor the harsh notions and stories that you are the worst person ever, your Buddha nature is just on the other side of that door. And if you open into it, you tap into that wellspring of possibility to awaken, liberate yourself, and heal. We were created for this task. And when we do it for ourselves, we liberate others along the way. And this, my friends, is what makes your life sacred. And let's come back so that we can together look at the merit that we've created and dedicate it. In the Buddhist practice, whenever we come into the presence of the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, there is merit, there is goodness that is generated. So even when you feel at your lowest, showing up to a gathering where we shelter among these jewels creates beautiful, beautiful opportunities and possibilities for not only us, but by extension out into the world. So we take a moment of intentionality to dedicate this. And what I'd like to do, it's a little unusual, but I'd like to bring us all into the image of a shit pile. And, you know, the shit pile of life, your life, my life, we've all been there. And I'd like to invite you to imagine yourself sitting on top of it, steaming stench. That's your life. That's my life. And that is life at times. That is suffering. And we all experience it. It's almost boring over how predictable it is in terms of being human. We're all going to find ourselves sitting on piles of stench. I remember one time in my life where that was really relevant and prevalent. And I went into a meditation to really try to see if I could experience something else just for a moment. Because I know that the moment is all we have. But in my moments, I just was so distorted that the only thing I could see and smell was this shit show of my life. So I got quiet. And I remember just thinking, okay, what else can I see here? Open up, Julia. Look deeply. And the first thing I saw were flies, which was gross. I was like, "Oh no, that's so gross. I can't stand flies. Ugh." But I'm not going to kill them because that would be antithetical to the practice. So I'm just going to sink deeper into this soft, stinky, slimy mess of my life. And what do I see? And just for the most fleeting moment, a butterfly flew by. And that was it. That was all it took to remind me that within me is all that I need to transform, to change completely. It's going to take time. It's going to take practice. Sometimes I may just leap off the heap and be liberated, only to encounter life again where I feel like I'm right back on it. But all the while, I'm gaining tools, I'm gaining awareness, I'm remembering to come home to the present moment where I have everything I need, where I am everything I need. I have everything I need. I am everything I need. Breathe that in, friends. That is the bodhicitta, your limitless heart awakening, softening. May it connect to all of life, steeped in the stench of misery. And by your awareness and illumination, you bring light to ignite the embers of someone else. May they have the courage to light their own way by your example. And in doing so, may we all feel a little more free to love. Thank you so much for your beautiful practice here today, friends. We'll see you next time. Namaste.